An emergency fund isn't just important during your career or maybe when you're raising a family. It's vital to your retirement success and confidence as well. I've got 3 reasons why you should have an emergency fund in retirement. I've got that more coming up. Do you have a fully funded emergency fund? I hope so. This is sort of bedrock foundation to building a strong financial house. And do you have that emergency fund in a separate bank account, not just commingled in your checking account? We've seen people have that and do that successfully where that emergency fund is within that checking account, but we've seen a lot more people try that and not be successful because the dollars are just right there in that checking account, very easy to spend. For us, there's a few different best practices or principles we recommend with the emergency fund. One is that it is in a separate account. 2, that separate account should be FDIC insured so that just in case you're having a financial emergency at the same time the economy's having a financial emergency, you know that those dollars are reliable, they're safe and secure, and you can access them. 3rd, you want to make sure those dollars are liquid and available to you at any time, that there aren't penalties or restrictions to getting to those, that the account is free. And then after those 4 criteria are met, go out and get the best interest rate possible and without violating any of the other 4 guidelines. This often leads people to use an online money market or a high yield money market account for their emergency fund, and that can often make a lot of sense. But I got this question recently, and we get this question actually fairly frequently, and that is, in retirement, do I still need this emergency fund? Is that still important? Or could I spend it down and use that early in retirement and then just use my portfolio and not have an emergency fund during retirement? I understand the question, right? During your working career, likely you've got kids at home and there's more financial stress maybe and more financial sort of surprises that can come up, especially if you've got kids. But in retirement and during your career, when those sort of surprises or emergencies do come up, it's really impractical to dip into your retirement accounts on an ongoing basis. There's taxes and certainly could be penalties, early withdrawal penalties as well, let alone you're trying to save up for retirement. And if every time you're reaching your hand in the cookie jar when there's a surprise, that can really cause you to take a couple steps backwards. But during retirement, right, there may be taxes when you withdraw dollars, but there aren't any penalties to withdrawing dollars. So is it still important to have that emergency fund? Well, I'd argue that it is. You're still going to want an emergency fund during retirement. It might be a little bit more lax, it might be a little bit more fluid, but it's going to provide you with a few very tangible benefits. The first one is miscellaneous expenses. Unforeseen expenses are still going to come up in retirement. They might look a little bit different. It might be for you as opposed to, having, an expense come up for your kids, but they're still going to come up. Things like a surprise root canal. Oh, I just went to the dentist, thought everything was fine, and realized now I need a root canal, something like that. Or in maintenance or issues with the house, those sorts of things. They're inevitably still going to come up. And just emotionally, even though you could, whenever those unforeseen expenses arise, you could dip into that investment account, dip into your retirement portfolio. I've seen from experience that feels like you're raiding the cookie jar. Like you are rating your portfolio every time those little kind of knick-knack expenses come up, those little, I wasn't planning on that and we don't have, the resources in the bank account. I've got to pull this out and this out of my portfolio. It just starts to wear on you, and the feeling is different having to withdraw all those little things from the portfolio versus having a safety net in hand. So still having an emergency fund to cover those miscellaneous expenses that are inevitable that will come up in retirement, that can provide a lot of peace of mind. Second, having an emergency fund can help you with your tax planning in retirement as well. Think about this. Here, I'm recording this in the 4th quarter of 2025, and say that you've already done your tax planning for this year, hopefully working with your CFP, and you've taken a look and taken advantage of the new senior deduction, which is $6,000 for you or $12,000 if you are married and you both qualify, you want to take advantage of that. Say you're not yet at your required minimum distribution age, and so you want to do a Roth conversion to pay the most tax at the lowest tax brackets. And so you do all the analysis and you look at how much you've withdrawn from your investments and what your dividends and interest are, and you say, all right, I'm going to do a Roth conversion, get us to the top of the 12% tax bracket, and we're all set. And then a few weeks later, but yet still here in the fall or in the fourth quarter of the year, an opportunity comes up for you to take a trip, and you didn't have those resources set aside in your bank accounts already. You're going to have to dip into your portfolio, and that could undo some of the tax strategy that you meticulously put in place. It could cause you to pay taxes at a higher rate, could cause you to pay more tax on your Social Security, could cause you to be subject to IRMA, the income-related monthly adjustment amount, on your Medicare Part B and Part D. It could unravel or spoil a well-executed tax strategy. However, if that vacation or that root canal or that car maintenance or house maintenance, if that came up and you had a cash reserve, you had an emergency fund on hand, you could draw the dollars from there. And then even if you said, yeah, but I need to replenish my cash reserve, how am I going to do that? Well, then you just wait until the next calendar year, you wait a couple months or into the next tax year, and you withdraw dollars at that point from your portfolio, replenish your cash, and you're all set. And you bake that withdrawal into your tax planning for the next year. So that cash reserve can give you a lot of flexibility from a tax planning standpoint as well. And then finally, the third reason is it gives you flexibility with your investment planning, your investment strategies as well. You know that your investment approach, your investment strategy during retirement should be different than during your career. During your career, you're trying to climb the mountain. You're trying to benefit from dollar cost averaging, so investing in a portfolio, a diversified portfolio that goes up and down as the stock market does. And as you invest every single week, every single paycheck, every single month, you're buying shares. And when there are inevitable dips, you're buying more shares at those lower prices. So when things rebound, you have this sort of slingshot approach. Well, if you're doing that exact same thing, but coming down the mountain, you can have the complete opposite effect. If you are just simply investing in a diversified portfolio and selling a chunk of shares every single month to withdraw those dollars from your portfolio, then you need to sell more shares when those prices inevitably go down or when there's little dips. And that's the exact opposite of what you want to happen on the other side. So it's reverse dollar cost averaging. Therefore, a different approach, a better approach to invest during retirement. We call it a personal pension plan. Others call it a bucket of money, but it's essentially aligning your investment approach with the time horizon for when you're going to need the dollars. Dollars that you're going to need in the next 2 to 3 years should be in short-term investments, okay? Things that there's not a lot of growth, but there's not a lot of volatility as well. Dollars that you need for the 3 to 7 or 3 to 10 years after that, those should be in intermediate term investments. You're not swinging for the fences there. You've got some more upside appreciation, but there's some downside protection. And then dollars that you're not going to need to touch for the long term, the 10 years. That's not where you're trying to hit a grand slam or striking out, but these are dollars that are more aggressive for your own temperament, but more aggressive, that are fighting inflation and going through the ups and downs of the stock market. They're in a diversified portfolio. If you lay out your investments in that way, when we see the inevitable dips in the stock market, because we will, they existed during your career, they're going to exist during retirement. It's a feature of investing, it's not a bug. When we see those, then you don't need to panic because you know you've got those short-term resources and those intermediate-term resources. Well, an emergency fund can give you even more peace of mind during those inevitable stock market sort of gyrations, right? Where as you spend through those first, 2 to 3 years worth of cash flow, you should be replenishing them from your intermediate term bucket, or during unseasonably, really good times in the market, you can replenish that first bucket from that long-term bucket, okay? Well, if that long-term bucket really is having an unusually long downturn, which can happen, you might want additional resources in that short-term bucket, that 0 to 2, 0 to 3 years, and a cash reserve that you have on hand can give you extra time for your portfolio to rebound from the inevitable dips and give you greater peace of mind. So that emergency fund can give you more peace of mind, more flexibility with your investment planning as well. So those are 3 tangible benefits to still having an emergency fund in retirement. Each of those leads you to have more financial confidence. I've shared before, I don't really love the term emergency fund because emergencies are fairly rare. They don't come up that often. Instead, I'd rename that emergency fund and call it a financial confidence account. Because when you've got that backstop, when you've got those cash reserve dollars there, you know that, yeah, I've got more financial confidence, and that helps you every single day during your career, but also in retirement. Work with your certified financial planner on that. So you have a fully funded emergency fund, that it's connected to your tax planning when it needs to be, and it's an extension of your personal pension plan and investment strategy when it needs to be as well. Work with your CFP on that. If you don't have a CFP on your team, you can contact one on my team. Find us online, Korhorn.com. That's Korhorn with K, wisemoneyshow.com. You can find us there as well, or give us a call, 574-247-5898. All right, there you have it. Go out and take your next wise step in your financial life.